What's up YouTube, Daryl here from Zephyr, and today, as the winner of the poll, I am here to bring you an update to Traptrix. That's right, I feel that Traptrix is probably one of the best decks for either returning players or new players to pick up and then learn the game. It's relatively simplistic and it can be built on a very tidy budget, as well as having a very good competitive edge when it comes to the unknown and without splashing huge amounts of cash. The deck can be played very control, less so aggressive, but it still gives you introductions to XZs, it does give you introductions to links and everything else in between. So I'm going to take you through an entire list. I'll talk about some budget alternatives if any of the cards are a little bit too pricey. I'll also show you a demo side deck as well, so you have a bit of an idea of what you might be looking at if you're trying to put this deck together. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. Diving headfirst into the profile. Now I'm going to be starting off with a card that some people play at 2 and it is completely up to you on this one. I do feel that it's more consistent when you do play it at 2. Go in second, because the main reason for something like playing 3 of the Arachnocampa is to protect your spells and traps and use it as an extender. So for those of you unfamiliar with the cards, I'll take you through each of them as we go. So this card is unaffected by the whole normal trap cards. Pretty much all Traptrix monsters are the exact same. The first time each set card in your spell and trap zone would be destroyed by card effect each turn, it is not destroyed. And then during the main phase, if you control a Traptrix monster, you get a quick effect to special summon this card from the hand, and you can't special summon monsters from the edge deck for the rest of the turn except insects or plants, which is absolutely fine. Then your main starter, or one of your main starters, being your Traptrix Momelo. So this card is unaffected by the effects of whole normal trap cards, and then when it is normal summoned, you get to add a trap hole or a whole normal trap card from your deck to the hand. If it is special summoned, you target one spell or trap card your opponent controls and destroy it. And it's very important, that effect is mandatory, so there will be some times when you have the ability to chain block certain effects, but just remember that they are mandatory effects, whereas the not on summon normal effect is actually optional. Then your other starter for the deck is Triple Mantis. So when normal summoned, you get to add a Traptrix monster from the deck to the hand, unaffected by the effects of whole normal trap cards, and once per turn, quick effect, you get to target a set spell or trap you control, return that card to the hand, and then you get to set a spell or trap from the hand. Now, the benefit of something like that is if your opponent tries to target one of your spell and traps that you don't really want to be destroyed, you return it to the hand. The other benefit is it is still an activated monster effect for a Traptrix monster, which means you can trigger the other effects of your Traptrix Sarah, and that does come up to play. Another reason for something like this is some of your cards give you the ability to reset a trap card, but it gets destroyed or sent to the graveyard during the end phase, so there might be times where you want to recycle it if you haven't needed to use it. I'm on to Pudica. Now this is the card that you'd probably play 3 of if you don't want to play Arachnocampa at 3. The reason for that one is this can then technically act as another starter for you, but I still personally prefer Mantis or Momelo. So again, unaffected by the effects of whole normal trap cards, you're going to use each of the following effects once per turn. When it is normal summoned, you get to add a Traptrix Garden from the deck to your hand. And if this card is special summoned, you get to target a special summon monster your opponent controls and banish it. Also, during the next standby phase, your opponent gets to special summon one of their banished monsters, not specifically the card that is banished, but when you're banishing a card with the Pudica, you're going to be banishing something that kind of either doesn't want to be coming back or loses its materials or is going to be disruptive to you during that particular period. The reason I like to play this at 2 rather than at 3 is that if I can get the ability to search it and then use it as a follow-up for the next turn, it's one of your great starters to get you to the Traptrix Garden that I'll quickly jump ahead and show you. So this one is during the main phase, you get to normal summon a Traptrix monster in addition to your normal summoner set. You can only gain this effect once per turn. The first time each insect or plant monster you control would be destroyed by battle each turn, it is not destroyed. And you can banish one monster you control to special summon a Traptrix monster from the hand or grave. You can use each effect once per turn. So the idea is you'd play through Pudica to get to this card as early as you possibly can. Once you've got it, you don't really ever want to be normal summoning down the Pudica, because unfortunately, it doesn't give you access to it from other places. It only lets you add it back from the deck to the hand. It doesn't let you bring it back from the grave or the banishment, and if it did, that would have been amazing. You only ever really need to be playing one Traptrix Garden. Any more than that can get a little bit too cloggy, so something you might need to keep in mind. Then for the other Traptrix monster, 2 of the Dionea. If it is normal summoned, it gets to target a Traptrix monster in your graveyard and special summon it in defense position. And when this card is special summoned, you get to target a whole normal trap card in your graveyard and set it, but you banish it during the end phase of the next turn. So that's where Mantis will come into play, because if you use Mantis to return it from the field back to the hand, it's not going to get banished. I do like to play the 1 for Yugioh. You don't need to play this card, you can cut it out completely. Again, that's another spot where the Pudding card can become a 3 of. But it's unaffected by the effects of whole normal trap cards, the same as Dianea and everything else. You can only use one of the following effects per turn, and only once that turn. You get to send a set trap card you control to the graveyard to special on this card from the hand. If you control no cards in your spell and trap zones, you get to banish this card from the graveyard to target a whole normal trap in the graveyard and set it to the field. So it's just one of them cards that can be very, very good for the grind state. It's also one of them cards that, for example, let's say your opponent Nibiru's you, or if they use the Mitsurugi Makumo, if you have the access to the Arachnacampa and the Viscello, it gives you that ability to send a trap card, summon down the Viscello, then of course you still have the Arachnacampa that can reveal itself and summon itself down, and that straight away gives you access to your rank 4 should you need to, or you can work into a Sarah and then build off from there. The last monster that we play is the free Parallel Exceed. You can cut this down to 2. I have seen people cut it down to 2. The reason and the benefit for that is, if you cut it at 2, what you're trying to do is you normal summon any of your Traptrix monsters, turn them into Sarah, reveal the Parallel in the hand, summon down the Parallel from the hand and summon the other one from the deck. Wham bam, thank you ma'am. Overlay both of these as they do reduce their levels to level 4s, and that gives you instant Traptrix Rafflesia or any other the rank 4s that you need that could be generically made. So the benefit of playing it 2 is that you don't have this third floating copy in the deck that will be a hard brick that you don't want to see. The downside is you're playing one less copy of it, meaning it's one less copy effective and consistent to see it. So it's pros and cons, entirely up to you and your preference on if you want to be doing that. This build is 41 cards, so I'm showing you all these little cards you could cut down to make it dead on 40 if you need to. I'm also going to show you a more expensive card that will probably make it that 41 card, and you could sub that out should you need to. Moving on to the spell cards now, apart from the Traptrix Garden, we are only going to be playing 2 other spell cards. One in the Trap Tantalizing Tune, 2 Trap Tantalizing Tunes. If you don't want to play this card, you can very easily play Pot of Prosperity, Called by the Grave, Pot of Prosperity, Troll Tactic Talons, entirely up to you. So this one lets you discard a level 4 insect or plant monster or a normal trap card to draw 2 cards. You can banish this card from the graveyard to target one of your banished level 4 insects or plants or a normal trap card and place it on the bottom of the deck. You can only use each effect once per turn. This is basically your draw card of the entire deck. You don't need to play it, it's just one of the ones that you get it in the structure deck. So if you are buying 3 of the structure decks or 2 of the structure decks or however you want to be going for it, you're going to have access to this one, whereas Pot of Prosperity might be something else you need to deviate to pick up. But this is basically what it's acting for. A pseudo for a Pot of Prosperity and a pseudo for a Call by the Grave, Troll Tactic Talents, you name it, whatever you have access to. Moving on to the trap cards, which are going to be the most important aspect of this entire deck. We are playing 3 of the Holutea. Absolutely love this card in the deck and the whole strategy behind it. It was a great inclusion for the deck as well. So you can activate this card the turn it's set by discarding a normal trap card. You special summon this card in defense position as a normal monster, plant earth level 4 with attack 400 and defense of 2400. Do not underestimate how important that 2400 defense can be, because that could be very, very important for some of your plays. It is really, really cool. But more times than not, you're just getting it to be activated as a trap card the turn it is set, triggering off your Sarah's effect, but then you can also give you the ability to work its way into a rank 4. It also has an additional effect that you get to banish this card from the graveyard to then target a Traptrix monster in your graveyard and special summon it, but you can only use 1 effect per turn. So you're either going to summon it as a trap card and then banish it from the graveyard as a trap card during your opponent's turn, or if you already have it in your graveyard, you can banish it from the graveyard to summon a card back. You just won't be able to activate it the turn it's set in that same turn. Then for your trap hole cards, again, completely flexible depending on what you have access to and what you want to play. Gravedigger Trap Hole is probably the ideal one to start off with, as when your opponent activates a monster effect in the hand or graveyard, or when your opponent banishes a monster via effect is activated, negate its effects, and if you do, inflict 2000 damage to your opponent. So the best thing like that is Malice always activate their effects when they are banished, so you can actually trap hole them with Gravedigger and stop them coming back. And then burn them for 2000 life points, which is really useful. We've then got the one Floodgate Trap Hole. So when your opponent summons a monster or monsters, you change it to face down defense position. Monsters changed to face down defense position cannot change their battle position. Now this is very important for some of the early stages. So for example, if your opponent goes normal summon Dormouse, you'd activate Floodgate to flip it face down, because then they can't link it off. They can't really get rid of it, bar a tribute summon, which they would have already conducted a normal summon, which makes it very, very awkward for it to be dealt with. The downside of something like Floodgate Trap Hole is if your opponent has extenders, or if your opponent has a way to get to a link monster, you can't flip a link monster face down. If you were to activate this on, for example, a Mitsurugi Saji, that will still get its effect, it will still get flipped face down, you won't really get much advantage from it. So that's when you kind of need to give and take depending on what environment you're going into. The other options, which is probably going to be more effective for the Mitsurugis, is something like a bottomless trap hole. You still destroy it, but you banish it, so that could be quite useful for something like the Makumo. The only downside for the Makumo is that by the time they've summoned it, they're going to destroy all of your monsters. and then you're going to activate Bottomless Trap Hole, hoping that they have already activated prayers or a way that it can't then be tributed in response, and then dodge the trap hole, basically. Then 1 Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare, and the final Terrifying Trap Hole Nightmare. So Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare is when a monster that was special summoned specifically this turn activates its effects, negate the effects and destroy it. If your opponent has special summoned a monster or monsters this turn, target a monster your opponent controls with 2000 or more attack and destroy it. Then if you have a whole normal trap card in your graveyard, you get to banish 1 monster from your opponent's graveyard. You can only activate 1 Terrifying Trap Hole Nightmare per turn. So this is another flexible option. You don't have to play this. There's a couple of other trap hole cards you might want to consider, but it's one of the ones that some people play and some people don't. Moving on to the hand trap aspect of the deck, the only monster hand trap that I am playing is the free Fluorolos. The reason for this one is going second. This is probably the biggest weakness of a deck like this. You want to be going first, you want to be able to control, and then try and go second while you're trying to pick a field apart can be a little bit damaging. So you want to be able to play one of the strongest hand traps right now. Droll can be semi-played around, whereas with a Fluorolos, some people will just either pass their turn on a much weaker field, or they'll start to play into it and giving you as many draws as possible. So this is one of the cards, if you have access to it, I highly advise you playing it. If you don't, you could consider main decking something like a Droll and Lotbird. The other card that is a little bit more pricey, but you can very easily sub this out directly for an Ash Blossom and Joyous Springs, is free Dominus Purge. So if your opponent controls a card, you can activate this card from the hand, and then when a card or effect is activated, it includes an effect to add a card from the deck to the hand. You negate the effect, and if you have a trap card in the graveyard, you can also destroy it. If you activate this card from the hand, you cannot activate the effects of Dark Waters and Fire monsters for the rest of the duel, which is absolutely fine because you're only really going to be relying on Earths and then mainly Winds with the Fluoros and Parallel Exceed, which is absolutely fine. Then free Infinite Impermanence, so trap cards in a deck like this is absolutely amazing, and then they're extra premium. Then the other trap card that I'm playing is free Evenly Matched. The reason for something like this is if you're going first, you can send it as your discard fodder for the Holotea. If you're going second, a lot of people don't respect or even expect this in the main deck for going first. So if you do end up going second, you can go Fluorolos and draw into an Evenly Matched. Drop an Evenly Matched on your opponent, clear your opponent's field off, leaving them with 1 card, and then you can start picking it apart with your Traptrix resource and everything else in between. So it can be a very, very powerful card that will catch your opponent off guard and allow you to kind of play through a lot of different interactions. The final card, again, which is a little bit pricey, but you can cut it out if you need to, and some of the cards you can sub it in for would be stuff like the Beerus if you wanted to, is that Black Goat Laughs. And again, the reason I quite like this right now is there's a trap card that you can set, it's also a trap card that you can send, and you'll get a benefit for it being in the graveyard as it has 2 effects. On the field, you declare a monster card name. This turn, neither player can special summon monsters with that original name, except from the graveyard. You can banish this card from the graveyard to declare a monster card name. This turn, neither player can activate the effects of monsters on the field with that original name. You can only use 1 Black Laughs effects per turn, and only once that turn. So that's it for the entire main deck. Now to show you the extra deck. So for the extra deck, your ideal card you're going to want to be focusing on will be your Traptrix Sarah, which is why we are going to be playing this at free. So it requires a non-link Traptrix monster, which means you can't turn a Sarah into a Sarah. So the benefit of something like this is the link summon card is unaffected by trap effects. So it means if your opponent tries to imperm it, happy days, they've just wasted an imperm because Sarah is unaffected. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn and not during a damage step. If a normal trap card is activated, yours or your opponent's, you get to special summon a Traptrix monster from the deck with a different name than the card you control. If your other Traptrix monster's effect is activated, you get to set a whole normal trap card directly from the deck. Now, the benefit of something like that is, as I was mentioning with the Memelo is mandatory. So, for example, if I don't have a trap card that I want to return with the Mantis, I'm not going to be summoning this off of the back of Sarah if I've already activated a normal trap card. That's where the benefit of special summoning out something like a Traptrix Memelo comes into play, because your Traptrix Memelo is mandatory. Whether your opponent has a spell or trap or not, it will still activate. In doing so, you then have the ability to trigger off your Traptrix Sarah to let you set a Traptrix trap card, and that's kind of where you're going to get the benefit from. Then for our aggressive Traptrix Link monster, we are playing the 1 Adipus. So 2 monsters including an insect or plant, relatively easy to make. This Link Summon card is unaffected by trap effects, and all Traptrix monsters you control gain 1000 attack while you have a normal trap card in your graveyard, which is really, really important, as you'll see, most of your Traptrix monsters are like 1600 attack, your Adipus is 1800 attack, so being able to gain that 1000 attack can really turn your level 4 monsters in the stuff of like Memelo, Mantis and everything else into like mini 2500, 2600 beat sticks, back to with an Adipus being 2800 beat stick as well. Then on top of that as well is once per turn you get to target face-up card your opponent controls up to the number of insects and or plants you control, negate their effects until the end of this turn. Then you get to banish 1 normal trap card from the graveyard, and if you do, destroy one of those target face-up cards. For your generic Link monsters, we've got the one SP Little Knight and the one IP Masquerena. There is some flexibility in the extra deck. Like, one of the kind of engines that I'm really quite tempted to play around with right now is the Rika engine. And you can play Rika Glamour plus Rika Princess, and then in the extra deck you would play a Rika Strenna and a Sacred Tree Beast Hyperion. And the reason you would do that is the Strenna can give you a bit of resource management. The Princess acts as a form of negation in the graveyard by tributing off the Strenna, and when Strenna is tributed, you then get to go into a Sacred Tree Beast Hyperion, and then this one also then sets you up with negates depending on what materials it has attached to it, and when it is summoned, you get to, or when a card effect is activated, you get to target a card in the graveyard with the same type, so monster, spell, or trap, and then attach it to this card as material. So, really kind of cool option. It's something that I would consider. I just like the idea of IP working its way into SP, just because it gives you that added up disruption. For the rank 4 XEs, we are playing the one Traptrix Rafflesia. So this is your best one to go through defensively. So it's unaffected by trap effects while it has XYZ materials. And then Traptrix monster you control, except itself, cannot be destroyed by battle or card effect, which is really important if your opponent is trying to use Makumo to try and Raigeki the field. That will give you a line of protection. Your opponent cannot target Traptrix monster you control, except its Rafflesia with card effects. Once per turn, during either player's turn, you get to detach material from this card, and then send a whole normal trap card from the deck that meets its activation requirements. So for example, if your opponent was to activate a monster effect in the hand, so one of the more commonly used effects of something like Rafflesia, if your opponent tries to activate a Nibiru on you, and you've got a Rafflesia on the field, use Rafflesia to then send the Gravedigger's Trap Hole, and then that means your opponent's Nibiru gets negated by the Trap Hole, and then they take 2,000 damage. It's very, very good that way. It can be a little bit risky if you're only playing one copy, because if you hard open up a Traptrix Trap Hole, not a Gravedigger's Trap Hole, you kind of lose that effect to be sent off the Rafflesia, but it does give you a lot of grind, and it is one of the go-to cards. We've got the one Panicular. So this one is generic rank 4 as well. While this card has material, it's unaffected by trap effects, and this is more like your aggressor in comparison to the Rafflesia. Is also by trap effects and the activated effects of other monsters with the same type as cards as this card's material. So if you have like insects or plants, it's unaffected by those. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. You get to detach material from this card to add a Traptrix monster from the deck to the hand, and if a monster or monsters owned by your opponents is sent to their graveyard or banished by a card effect, etc. in damage state, you get to attach one of those monsters to this card as material. So that's when you're going to start building up to your protection by being able to go, cool, attach a reptile, or cool, attach a Cyverse, and this starts getting protected. The one Alameris, so 2 level 4 monsters. This card is unaffected by trap effects while it has an Xyz material. You can detach 2 materials from this card to special summon a level 4 insect or plant from the graveyard. If your opponent's monsters leaves the field because of a card effect and is now in the graveyard or banished, except during the damage step, you get to detach a material from this card to target one of them and special summon it to your field. Sometimes that can be quite useful for you. You're ideally trying to work your way into a generic rank 4, but that's something you kind of keep an eye on. Your other generic rank 4s we are playing is the one Baguska. So like if you get hand trapped to death or the game really needs to go into a grind state, Baguska is one of your best friends. Time Thief Redoer. Being able to make this card with a trap card with something like a Shade Brigadine, if you want to consider it, but mainly the Traptrix Holotea, means that it has the ability to detach materials and, as a monster, banish itself from the field and then come back during the next standby or during the end phase. But then because it has a trap card, you also get to return non-target, place a face-up card on the field to the top of their deck. Then during the standby phase of each turn, you get to take one card from the top of your opponent's deck and attach it to this card as material. If it has a spell as material, you get to detach and draw a card. So there's loads of things that Redoer can do, and I really, really do like Redoer. It's like one of my favourite rank 4 XEs, but this is one of the cards that I feel that you absolutely have to play. One of the more recent cards is Eclipse Twins. The reason you're going to be playing this is, again, generic rank 4, but for this XYZ, the XZ summon, you can treat a rank 4 monster you control as a level 4 monster for its material. You can detach 1 material from this card. This card can make up to 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase this turn, and if it's sent to the graveyard, you get to target 2 other rank 4 or lower XZs in your graveyard and special summon them, attaching one of them to material, so you get to recycle your Rafflesia or any of your other Traptrix monsters. And then we do play the one, as I chuck that out of the way, we are playing the one Castel the Skyblaster Musketeer. Now this is mainly for a card in the side deck because you're going to be working towards a Harpy's Featherstorm. The idea is if you want to technically turn skip your opponent because you feel that their game state, like game 2 or 3, is going to be a lot more powerful than you, and you can skip their turn and then push him for an OTK the next turn, you'd go into Castel, and then off of the back of something like a Trill Tactics Thrust, you'll be able to get direct access to your Harpy's Featherstorm, activate this, and while you control a winged beast monster, which you will do, until the end of the next turn, negate any monster effect your opponent activates. So it lets you basically just turn skip them. And the last card we are playing is the 1 Superstar Slayer Typhon Sky Crisis, because it's one of the good cards of this particular format, being able to deal with detonators, Makumos, and you're not really presenting monsters on your field with crazy high attacks, so you can actually build a lot of your field up, and then you turn your Typhon for one of your strongest monsters. Now, I know I've only shown you 14 cards. The reason I'm only showing you 14 cards is there's a couple of options that you can kind of look in for the last card. So last card, you could work towards something like a Divine Arsenal AA Zeus. You can also work into the Rika Strenna option that I mentioned previously. You can look at other generic link monsters if you wanted to give you a bit more flexibility. And this just gives you a bit more balance for whatever your budget may or may not be. So entirely up to you. You could even put a Gargoyle Cowboy in there, so you don't need to rely on the Gravedigger's Trap Hole to help you out for time cons. And the reason for something like that is you can't always rely on your opponent to activate an effect to trigger the Gravediggers. And when you're playing a trap control deck like this, it does take a bit of time, because a lot of time you're thinking on responses, your opponent's thinking on what to kind of out and how to out it and how to navigate, and dealing with the unknown. So it can take a bit of time, and then sometimes you want to make sure you have an option to win in time if that does come around. But you should be trying to win in normal time in general, and that's where Gravedigger will come into your rescue more times than not. So that's it for the main and the extra. Now to show you the side. So for the side deck, for your hand traps of choice for this particular format, 3 Drone Lockbird, backed up by 3 Artifact Lancia, pretty standard. Then we are on Triple Tactics Thrust ×3. Now, if you don't have access to this card, what I would advise you to do is you'd probably max out on some of the trap cards I'm going to show you. So for the trap cards that I would probably double up on or triple up on, you've got your Harpy's Feather Storm, Artifact Sanctum, and your Mischief of the Gnomes. You can also consider stuff like DDG, you can also consider stuff like Destructive Daruma Cannon, but they're going to be a little bit more specific if you do have access to the Triple Tactics Thrust. For the spell cards that you can also set off your Triple Tactics Thrust or add if you're going second, will be your Harpy's Feathers Duster and your 2 Lightning Storms to deal with front row and back row. Can be very, very important, because you need to pick those apart before you're able to then continue to build your field with your Traptrix. And that is pretty much it for the entire build, sides, extra, you name it. If you do have any questions at all, by all means, please let me know in the comments down below. I'm more than happy to answer them. I do still feel that this is one of the best introductory decks. It's one of the best structure decks we've had, alongside Blue Eyes. And I feel that Blue Eyes is obviously another very, very good deck to get into. But if you wanted to kind of slow the pace of the game down, make it a little bit more controlled, make it a little bit more kind of simplistic, then this is one of the best decks to do so. And I still remember, like, this wasn't like toppling metas, but when it did come out, it still actually had such a great bump thanks to the structure deck, and it was a really, really good deck to play. And like I said, it can be built on a very tidy budget. You can upgrade it. It can be a deck that you work with non-stop. You could very easily make Blue Eyes your go-to combo deck, and then you can make your Traptrix your go-to control deck with slight aspects of combo in it as well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Any questions, comments below, always happy to answer them. For now, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.